I've decided to cancel your insurance because it's putting too much strain on our household budget. From now on, you'll have to pay for your treatment and insurance yourself." That statement pierced my heart. The living room, decorated for Christmas, was usually a warm place for family gatherings. But today was different. The moment I stepped into the house, the air felt heavy. My parents were sitting around the dining table, wearing serious expressions like they were in a business meeting. "Sit down, Natalie," Elise said. Her voice lacked its usual warmth. It was cold and businesslike. I slowly sat down, feeling the slight vibration from my continuous glucose monitor on my wrist. It was sensing my stress and warning me of a spike in blood sugar. "We need to talk about your insurance and treatment." With those words, she informed me they were canceling my insurance and would no longer pay for any of my treatments. 16 years of daily glucose checks, insulin shots, and regular visits to my endocrinologist. All of that had been my routine essential to staying alive. $600 a month in medication, $7,200 a year in insurance, plus countless medical devices and testing supplies. Without them, I would literally die. I took a deep breath and suppressed my emotions. I tried to maintain the composure I'd learned from running my business for 2 years. "Receipts matter," I replied calmly. "Exactly. I knew you'd understand," Elise said, sounding relieved. "We're really grateful that you help with the mortgage every month, but even so, your medical expenses are too much. That $7,200 insurance premium, the monthly medication, the testing supplies, the doctor's visits. Can you see how much pressure it's putting on our finances?" My heart sank. They were calling my life-sustaining expenses a burden while continuing to accept my financial help. They were telling me that what I give them for living costs is appreciated, but my medical needs cost too much. "Your father's injury at the construction site increased our medical bills too. We're struggling, Natalie." Elise continued. "You're 21 now. It's time for you to handle your own medical costs." They were gladly receiving my financial support while cutting the costs that kept me alive. "Which insurance company is it?" I asked. "Blue Cross. I called this morning and finished the cancellation. It'll end on January 1st. Elise said. Her tone was casual, as if she'd just switched phone plans. "You're running your own business and doing well. Surely you can afford your own insurance." My glucose monitor vibrated again. My blood sugar was spiking. Acute stress response. With 16 years of diabetes management, I understood what my body was doing. But this level of stress was unlike anything I'd experienced. "You do realize how much I give you every month, right?" I said quietly. "Of course," Elise replied. "The mortgage is $1,800. And we sometimes ask you to cover your father's medication. We truly appreciate it. But that's separate from your medical expenses." "Separate?" "That's right. You're helping us because we're family, aren't you? But your medical expenses are a personal cost. You're graduating from college and you're an adult now, so you should handle your own needs." My father spoke without taking his eyes off the TV. "Natty is a good girl. She'll understand. She helps us every month because she cares about her family, right?" Elise added. "Your support has really helped us, so you'll keep doing that, right?" I couldn't believe her words. They were canceling my insurance, yet expecting my financial support to continue. My life meant less to them than my money. You understand, right, Natty? My father finally looked away from the TV and spoke. Honestly, is your condition really that serious? You look fine most of the time, and you're working hard. Do you really need such expensive treatment? My glucose monitor vibrated on my wrist. Elise continued. You just wear that little device on your arm and give yourself injections occasionally, right? Does that really require so much money? Don't most diabetics manage it more easily? Natalie is exaggerating, she said firmly. Do you really need to see an endocrinologist every 3 months? A family doctor should be enough. And you don't need to check your blood sugar 6 times a day, 2 or 3, should be fine. Do you really need that expensive sensor? The old-fashioned finger prick method should be enough. I was stunned by her words. She was calling the medical care that had kept me alive for 16 years an exaggeration. Besides, my father added, you don't even look sick. You're working every day and living a normal life. If you were really sick, wouldn't you look worse? My glucose monitor was now in the danger zone. And yet, this device was one of the things they claimed was unnecessary. You've always been practical and reasonable, so I thought you'd understand our financial situation. And thanks to your support, we've been able to make ends meet. As Elise looked at my silent face and twisted it into a convenient interpretation, I reached my limit and stood up. Excuse me. I didn't look back as I left the house. But inside, my decision was already made. In the car, I checked my glucose monitor again. My blood sugar was still high. On the way home, a plan was already forming in my mind. First, arrange for emergency medical insurance. Then, end all financial support to my family. They had decided my medical costs were personal expenses. Now it was time for them to learn that their mortgage was being paid with personal assistance from me. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 5. From that day forward, my life was structured by a medical schedule. Blood sugar checks first thing in the morning, insulin before meals, a final check before bed. While other kids played, I was learning to manage my own survival. At the time, my parents strictly followed the doctor's instructions, carefully recorded my blood sugar logs, and always accompanied me to my endocrinology appointments. But as I grew older and learned to manage it myself, their attitude slowly began to shift. Natalie's fine. She can handle it on her own, Elise began to say. When I got my insulin pump, my father said, well, that makes things easier. The machine does it now. When my blood sugar became unstable from stress, and I was trembling as I placed a glucose tablet in my mouth. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a little drop in blood sugar. Even normal people get hungry, you know, Elise said. I tried desperately to explain. Mom, this isn't regular hunger. When my blood sugar drops below 50, I could lose consciousness. But you're conscious, aren't you? If it's really that dangerous, then why can you go to school like normal? Why were you able to take college entrance exams? That logic became their new understanding. If I could live my daily life, then the illness wasn't that serious. If I could manage it myself, then it wasn't that expensive. If I looked normal, then I didn't need special consideration. They began to see 16 years of my effort: daily glucose checks, strict dietary control, regular doctor visits, responding to nighttime alarms as a normal routine. My success in self-management became the very reason they started to downplay the severity of my illness. Don't other diabetics manage it more easily? Elise began saying more and more. You're just a bit too much of a perfectionist. My invisible fear, daily calculations, and constant medical vigilance looked like mere routine to them. My life-sustaining efforts had been downgraded to a habit. And now, my adult medical expenses were being dismissed as personal costs. Ironically, the more capable I became as a patient, the more they dismissed my illness. My success had become their excuse to reduce support. And then, 2 years ago, my digital marketing business began to grow rapidly as I started college. What began as a small side hustle turned into over $15,000 a month in income. But along with that success came financial requests from my family. It started when my father injured his back on a construction site. The workers' comp process was delayed, and my parents came to me, struggling with medical bills. We're so proud of your business success. You've done amazingly well. Could you help us out a little? With the promise it would only be for a few months, I agreed to pay for his medication. Then came the mortgage problem. His reduced work hours caused missed payments for 3 consecutive months. When the foreclosure warning arrived, they said to me, "Natalie, we need to ask a favor. Can you help us with the mortgage? We have no one else to turn to. You're our hope." I hesitated. But they were my parents. The people who raised me. "This is temporary, right?" I asked. "Of course. As soon as your dad's situation improves, we'll pay you back. You've been such a blessing, our miracle." My feelings were complicated. My business was just starting to stabilize, and $1,800 a month was a big expense for me. But at the same time, I felt guilty. These were the people who raised me. "All right," I said. "If you're in trouble, I'll help." "Thank you, Natty. You really are a wonderful daughter." But a few months turned into a year. And a year turned into 2. I tried several times to suggest cutting back the aid. But each time, guilt overwhelmed me. My parents had made sacrifices for me for years. My medical bills, special meals, frequent doctor visits. Now that they were struggling, could I really turn my back on them? "Natalie, we're so proud of you. We're truly lucky to have such a successful daughter. But family is supposed to help each other, right?" That line from Elise pierced deeply into my heart. Family is supposed to help each other. As a member of this family, wasn't it my duty to support the others now that I had succeeded? Every time I considered refusing to help, memories haunted me. My mother holding me when I collapsed from low blood sugar. My father taking time off work to explain my insulin pump at school. They did everything for me back then. I reminded myself. Now it's my turn to do everything for them. Right now, I was successful. So continuing to help felt like the natural thing to do. I set up automatic transfers. $1,800 for the mortgage on the 15th of every month, plus occasional emergency costs. Before I realized it, I was completely supporting their lives. But their attitude toward me shifted from gratitude to entitlement. Thank goodness we have Natalie's support became a common phrase. To them, my success had turned into a convenient ATM. Meanwhile, their reactions to my medical expenses were the opposite. Another doctor visit? Do you really need an endocrinologist? Isn't a family doctor good enough? Those insulin pump sensors, they cost this much every month? My father said, looking at the bill, isn't there a cheaper one? When my glucose monitor's alarm went off in the middle of the night. That noise again? I can't sleep with it going off, they complained. I tried to explain. The severity of type 1 diabetes, the complexity of daily management, the danger of any interruption. But their reaction never changed. But you live normally, don't you? If it's that serious, how are you running a business? My invisible disability, the daily fears, the relentless medical control, they saw it all as luxury. Meanwhile, their mortgage was a necessity. While I was contributing over $1,800 a month, they called my $600 medication bill too expensive. While I was providing $21,600 a year, they said my $7,200 insurance premium was a burden. The math was simple. I was giving them about 3 times the amount they gave me. But what I needed to survive was a personal expense, while what they received from me to live was a family responsibility. And now, on Christmas Day, it became clear. My worth lay in my money, not in my life. It was expected that I would support their lives every month, but keeping myself alive was my personal responsibility. I made a decision. If they saw my life as a personal matter, then my support would also be a personal choice. And I had no obligation to prioritize their comfort over my own survival. That night, I opened my banking app at home. Staring at the numbers on the screen, I reflected on the past 2 years. First, I canceled the automatic mortgage payment. When the message confirming payment canceled appeared, my hands were not trembling. I was calm and resolute. I closed the joint account and removed my name from the emergency fund account. I also deactivated the credit card that had been used to pay for my father's medical expenses. In less than 30 minutes, I completely dismantled the financial support system I had built over 2 years. Then I called Dr. Evelyn Marks's office. Endocrine Associates, this is Camilla speaking. A friendly voice answered the phone. Hi, I'd like to schedule an emergency appointment with Dr. Marks. This is Natalie Henderson. My insurance was suddenly canceled. Oh no. Camilla's voice turned concerned. Let me check your file. Yes, Natalie. Your next appointment is on February 15th. Did you say your insurance was canceled? Yes. My family terminated my coverage effective January 1st. Today is December 26th. In 5 days, I'll lose access to medical care. This is serious. A type 1 diabetic going without coverage is extremely dangerous. Let me check Dr. Marks's schedule. Please hold. After 3 minutes of hold music, Camilla returned. Dr. Marks can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. This is definitely an emergency. The next day, I sat in Dr. Marks's office, facing the endocrinologist who had treated me for 16 years. Her face was etched with deep concern. Natalie, tell me exactly what's going on. My parents canceled my health insurance to relieve financial pressure, all without prior consultation or my consent. Dr. Marks frowned. Do your parents understand the seriousness of type 1 diabetes? No, they don't, I answered. My mother said I was being dramatic, and that normal diabetics manage just fine. My father said I don't look sick, so I probably don't need expensive treatment. Unbelievable. Dr. Marks shook her head. Natalie, you've been a model patient for the past 16 years. Strict blood sugar management, regular monitoring, and ongoing care. Without those, what would happen? I knew the answer, but I needed to hear it. Without insulin, you would go into diabetic ketoacidosis within days to a week. You'd lose consciousness, fall into a coma, and without treatment, you'd die. This is not dramatic, it's medical fact. She continued. Your continuous glucose monitor has detected nighttime hypoglycemia multiple times. Without it, there's a real risk you wouldn't wake up from a dangerous low during sleep. That's a life-threatening scenario. I said honestly, but my parents decided that saving $7,200 a year in insurance premiums was more important than my life. Dr. Marks's expression hardened. Natalie, I've specialized in endocrinology for many years, and unfortunately, I've seen families cancel coverage more often than I'd like to admit. Especially for young patients who appear healthy. But this qualifies as a form of medical neglect. She looked at me for a long time. Natalie, sometimes family can be the most dangerous people in our lives, especially when they misjudge our worth. Protecting yourself from people who disregard your life isn't selfish. It's survival. You mean cutting ties? If necessary, yes. Your survival comes first, not their expectations or comfort. That day, I returned home with a medical letter, emergency insurance paperwork, and a week's worth of expensive prescriptions. But more importantly, I had validation from a medical professional that my family was endangering my life and that I had the right to protect myself. That night, I was able to feel calm for the first time in a while. My glucose levels were finally stable, my emergency prescriptions secured, and everything had returned to the proper medical routine. But something fundamental had changed. The boundary my parents crossed wasn't something that could be undone with an apology or an explanation. The phone started ringing one evening a week later. The first call was from my mother. The bank contacted us. The mortgage payment was rejected. That has to be a mistake, right? I answered the call and replied calmly. It's not a mistake. I canceled the automatic payment. Why would you do something like that? Her voice carried a note of panic. You promised to help us. We depend on you. You said my medical expenses were a personal cost I should cover myself. Your mortgage is also a personal cost. Please cover it yourselves. That's completely different. Elise shouted. The mortgage is about the house are living. That's not the same as your hospital bills. My hospital bills are what keep me alive. Don't you think that's more important than your mortgage? You're punishing us over the health insurance, aren't you? I didn't raise you to be this cruel. You're ungrateful. After everything we did to raise you, this is how you repay us? Ungrateful? I raised my voice. I supported you for 24 months, at $21,600 a year. That's $43,200 total. That's 6 times the $7,200 annual insurance premium you refused to pay. And I'm ungrateful? She was saying something, but I ended the call. Then, at 11 p.m., my father called. "Natty, what's going on here? We built our life plan trusting you'd be there for us. I also built my life around trusting I had insurance. But you canceled it without warning. You're overreacting. Didn't you end up getting new coverage anyway?" At 3 times the cost. After facing 4 days of medical disruption, I had to pay $800 out of pocket for emergency prescriptions. I explained. For 4 days, I lived in fear of dying. Every time the glucose monitor alarm went off at night, I wondered if it would be my last. I counted down the hours until I'd run out of insulin while waiting for emergency approval. And you call that fine? Silence. From now on, I will be stopping all financial support. Mortgage, emergency funds, everything. Just as you decided my life was a personal matter, I now consider your living costs to be your personal responsibility. Natty, that's. Goodbye. I hung up and blocked all family numbers. 3 months later, a foreclosure notice was officially issued. 5 months later, they lost the house. My father lost his job in construction, and my mother began working part-time at a fast food restaurant. They moved into a small rental apartment, and I cut off all contact with them. 1 year later, I felt at peace. Every morning, I checked my glucose monitor readings and confirmed my insulin pump was working properly. I had proper medical insurance and continued regular appointments with my endocrinologist. My health management was excellent, and my business continued to thrive. Then, one Thursday afternoon, I was shopping at the local supermarket. While I was choosing broccoli in the organic produce section, a familiar figure appeared at the corner of my vision. When I turned, I saw my mother. She looked noticeably different. The hair she once had styled regularly at a salon now looked uneven, as if she had cut it herself. Her clothes had changed from designer brands to inexpensive supermarket items. The absence of the $1,800 I had provided each month was clearly reflected in her appearance. The moment our eyes met, her expression shifted in complex ways. First surprise, then shame, and finally a flicker of hope. I tried to keep pushing my cart, but she slowly approached me. "Natalie." She spoke softly. "How have you been?" "I'm well," I replied briefly. "My health is stable." She flinched slightly, realizing I had deliberately used the word health. I could tell the memories from a year ago came flooding back to her. "I heard you bought a new house." She tried to change the subject. "Yes. It has a big yard and is perfect for running my business from home." I answered, making it clear that my financial situation remained stable. That's wonderful. Really wonderful," she said. Her voice carried mixed emotions. We stood in an awkward silence. "Listen, Natalie," my mother finally said. "We understand now about your diabetes, how truly important and necessary it is for you." "Do you?" I replied without emotion. "We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake." Tears were welling in her eyes. "Even though you were supporting us every month, we tried to cut the medical costs that were keeping you alive. What a thankless thing we did." I stared at her. This was the woman who raised me. She taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with homework, and nursed me when I was sick. But she was also the woman who, while receiving $21,600 a year from me, said that my $7,200 annual insurance premium was too much of a burden. "Is there any way?" she asked pleadingly. "Any way to fix this? We're really struggling. We lost the house. Your father lost his job. We've realized we can't live without your help. We were so foolish. We didn't understand how much you were supporting us or how important your medical care really is." I took a deep breath. "What you understand is the consequences, not my feelings." "What do you mean?" "You're apologizing because you're suffering financially. Not because I suffered, but because you did." She tried to respond, but I continued. "If I had found a new insurance plan easily, without any hardship, and if you had managed to live without my help, would you have apologized?" My mother fell silent. We both knew the answer. "What you've learned is the value of my support, not the value of my life." She looked confused. "To you, my worth was my money, not my life. Whether I lived or died didn't matter. What mattered was whether I kept providing money." "That's not true." She began to cry. "Whether or not you've really changed will be shown by time, not by words, but by actions, and by whether you've learned how to live without me." "How much time will that take?" she asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But start by finding solutions on your own instead of asking me for help. I'll learn to recognize my value beyond my money." I began to push my cart forward. Goodbye. On the way home, I was filled with complex emotions. The anger had mostly faded. What remained was a deep sadness and a small glimmer of hope. She did seem to be genuinely hurting. But I couldn't tell if it was regret born from love or despair, caused by financial hardship. When I got home, I checked my glucose monitor. The numbers were within normal range. Despite today's emotional encounter, my blood sugar was steady. With proper medical care, I could stay healthy even under stress. That was what I had fought for. That was what had been worth protecting. 2 months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was handwritten by my mother. "Dear Natalie, I've thought about your words over and over. You were right. We treated your support as something we were entitled to. We valued your money and overlooked your worth. I started working 2 jobs. Kenneth has found employment too. We're trying to live on our own. It's not easy, but we understand now that we must do this without you. One day, if you ever choose to forgive us, I hope we can rebuild our relationship not on money, but on love. With love. Mom." P.S. I've been studying type 1 diabetes at the library. I'm beginning to understand just how strong you are. I read that letter again and again. I have no intention of resuming financial support. But perhaps the relationship, as human beings, can be rebuilt. A new relationship, one based on mutual respect and understanding. My health and my boundaries come first, and my family is beginning to accept that. Maintaining boundaries can be a form of educating those we love. And sometimes, the harshest lessons lead to the most valuable growth. They lost their financial stability because they dismissed the value of my life. But in doing so, they gained the most important lesson: what I'm truly worth and how deeply their actions matter. Today, my glucose monitor shows perfect numbers. My health is steady. My business is thriving. and my boundaries are intact.